Tuesday, February. Please call the roll.
Mr. Capper?
Here.
Mr. Emmerich?
Here.
Mrs. Westphal? Here.
Okay, we have our minutes of our last meeting, January 5, 2023, before us. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions of those minutes?
None here.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It stands approved. Thank you. Mr. Drake, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Do you have anything to add to your report?
Just a couple quick things. First one, I'll welcome Evan Tamplin. He's our new laborer. He started Monday with us, just yesterday. Seems like a really good fit already, and we did orientation and safety training yesterday and was in the field with us today. So look forward to working with him. Think that's going to work out really well. Also want to wish Ken Crabtree the best in retirement. We've got him for the remainder of this week and next, and his last day will then be next Friday, actually. So I just want to wish him the best and thank him for his service, and it's been a pleasure to work with him over the years, quite a few actually. Outside of that, I have forwarded Mr. Capper's letter of support for the Miami County Pickleball Association. I want to thank them. I had a meeting with Paul Hinkleman and the small group. They formed the board. They are now a 501c3 nonprofit and are looking at funding to assist with some improvements that are needed at pickleball courts at Duke, and they're a pleasure to work with, and look forward to that relationship to continue and for funding to help with the courts. I think that's all I've got at this point. You're going to handle the Ron? Okay.
Okay, any questions of our park superintendent?
Is your new employee the arborist you were looking for?
Not yet. So the
Okay.
arborist position, that's a good point. So the arborist is going to replace Ken Crabtree's position. We had a labor management meeting with the union last week, so we've made it through the union approval process. It goes to civil service. It's on their agenda for today to be approved, and then it'll go to council from there to get that position established.
Okay.
Okay, let the minutes reflect that Kyle Brewer was here 3 minutes late. Hi, Tyler.
Started 3 minutes early.
Anything else from our park superintendent? Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Seiler, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Anything to add to your report?
I just would like to add that reservations started yesterday for the floating tents for 2023. So far, we have 25 tents that have been rented, and we have a total of 33 dates set aside for this coming summer. So, pretty good start as of pretty much one day in at this point.
Wow.
How much revenue does that bring in? If they're all rented?
I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look. We ran the report, but I forget now.
Approximately.
100,000.
100,000?
I would say it's probably 10 to 15 is where we were. I'm just right off the top of my
That's
head,
good
roughly. We way more than cover our costs for sure.
That's great.
Good.
And we're here to kind of provide a service,
Absolutely.
and that's a nice service to
And a
provide.
huge draw to the city from outside of our city and other states.
Mr. Seiler, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Seiler? Okay, Mr. Brewer, put you on a stand right away here. Anything to add to your report?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. Courses are going well, good condition, it says.
Yeah, we're open year-round, so this is kind of new territory for us, but things have been going really very, very well. Simulator business has been everything we kind of expected to be and a little bit more, really. So we're averaging about 7 to 8 hours a day during the month of January and February on it. So we've got league play in the mornings and in the evenings, Monday through Friday, and we've gotten some pretty mild weather, so we've actually been able to open the golf course and get a decent amount of play in the last month and a half. So, yeah.
Wow.
Any questions, Mr. Seiler, or Mr.
I was just curious about the storage building. Is that started? What's the status of the storage building?
Yeah, there is. We're all ready to go. There is some hold up with a zoning permit right now. So we are unfortunately still waiting on a FEMA report to provide some analysis that's needed for the zoning permit. So kind of getting...
because of the location of it? Or?
Because of the location of it, yes. So there has to be a FEMA analysis done because of where it is and whether or not that would affect a floodplain. So there's probably a little bit more detail there that I'm not the qualified to answer correctly, but,
It's interesting, are you putting utilities back in there? You're putting electric back in there,
it's a cold storage building.
cold storage building.
Yeah. I mean, the electric could be added in later, but that's not the plan right now.
I know Conservancy District is usually interested to see whether or not there's a destruction of the building passing that material downstream during a flood. I never heard of FEMA being interested in it. Huh, okay. Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Brewer?
Simulator's going well and booked and busy and...
Extremely, yeah. Like I said, so like right now, Monday through Friday, we have a senior league in the morning that takes up 3.5 hours, and then we have a two-player scramble league in the evenings. So in a 10-hour simulator day, that's 5 hours already, and then the middle of the day gets filled up, and weekends is usually pretty well booked. So, you know, it's a little bit weather dependent, but if it's nice, it just means people are playing golf and outdoors instead of indoors.
Awesome.
Okay, good. All right, I don't have any planning commission report. First matter of business to come before the commission today is the reaffirmation of a joint resolution with the Recreation Board. At the last joint meeting of the Park and Rec Boards, Mrs. Westfall and myself were there, and the acting chairman of that meeting, Mr. Tom Dunn, asked the question, why do we hold these joint meetings? Other than the fact that they take up time, there used to be a reason for it. It used to be there was a lot of communications going back and forth between the Rec Board and Park Board. Anymore, there was cell phones and Zoom meetings, and Mr. Seiler and Mr. Drake both cooperate extensively in that regard. So there was a joint resolution adopted at the last joint meeting, unanimously approved to go ahead and do away with the joint Park and Rec Board meetings unless it's deemed necessary by one of the boards, okay? So because our minutes, we don't necessarily approve those, I wanted to put this on the agenda for reaffirmation of that resolution today. Any questions concerning that?
Understood.
Well, I would make that motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Next, Mr. Terrington, did you want to address the recommendation of council concerning authorization to advertise for bids?
I would be pleased to. So we're asking for a recommendation from the Park Board to the council, and it's related to community development block grant funding. You, as a board, approved or you authorized the bidding for a new ramp and door setup at the Senior Citizen Center. We also had another project last year, and it was not related to the Senior Center, but there was a significant amount of money that was not needed for that project. I believe it was at the rec.
Buckeye
Is that
House.
the one I'm thinking of?
Buckeye House.
Buckeye House, thank you. And so, rather than surrender that back to the state asked if we had any other potential projects that we could utilize, and that would be eligible for CD projects. I mean, we had plenty of projects. I see some looks over here, but they were not eligible, so we couldn't just use it wherever we wanted to. Sorry, guys. But the Senior Citizen Center certainly qualifies, and so as we were looking and talking with Jeremy, Mr. Drake, one of the ideas that came up is instead of just doing a ramp, creating some covered outdoor space, covered patio, maybe something, well, it would be a covered roof area that would be maybe a 3-season type construction that could be just some passive outdoor space, would be landscaped, would have maybe some knee walls, we could get some furniture, hard furniture that's not going to walk away, and then add utilities, namely electric, to that area so that it could really expand the look and the usability of the senior center. And again, this would all be paid for with CDBG funds at no other cost to the city. So we are asking for a recommendation to the council to authorize us to bid for that whole project as a design-build project.
Mr. Drake, do you have any comments concerning this?
No, I think we've looked at it extensively. I think it's going to be a great addition to the center, and they even expressed some interest in expanding to an outdoor space, and this just fits perfect with what they had already kind of started to talk about, so I think it's a great idea.
It's been a little bit, wasn't there like a transformer issue in the ground there last time? Is that
That's
rectified with this, or?
That's
is that...
all part of it, yes.
Okay.
We sent some drawings to an engineer at AES, and they're working on that to fix that situation, and that'd be all part of it.
Any other questions of Mr. Drake or Mr. Terrington?
I will say that another part of this additional money would be used to replace the remaining HVAC equipment, so we can improve that on the inside of the senior center as well.
Well, I'd make a motion to recommend to City Council that the Director of Public Service and Safety be authorized to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the improvements of the Troy senior citizens at a total cost not to exceed $213,382 and to execute any documents that may be related to a grant reallocation. And I know that's true because I've just read it from our agenda. So.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Capper?
Yes.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Tennington, well, I've got you on the hot seat. Could you give us an update on the Waco Park sale?
So we're close to closing. We do have a preferred bidder. I believe the number is, so we have two lots there, $9,000 per lot. I believe at this point we are doing maybe some final surveying, or at least getting scheduled for closing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that matter? While you're here, do you have anything else?
Oh, I do. Thank you. I come here, and this may be a Cleveland phrase, falling on the knife, I guess, because I've been asked, we've done an update to the DORA, and I've been asked twice by a member of council, public meetings, you know, have you talked to the rec board? Yes. Have we talked to have you talked to the park board? And I said, oh yeah, everybody's okay with it. And at last night's meeting, he said, I don't think you talked to the park board. And I asked him afterwards, and he said, no, he's talked to at least two of you, and I hadn't talked to you. So I don't know if I was in a parallel universe or mumbling under my breath, or I was talking to the wall, and I apologize for that, but I do want to let you know what we're doing and what we're not doing, which probably more...
This has been approved by council.
It has been approved by council. That's why I want to say what it's not going to do. There's three copies of it.
Okay.
So just to give you a background, we did expand the DORA. Council approved it last night, so it will be effective in March. Between the original DORA and the new DORA, there was significant changes to the state law. I won't get into all the details there, but one of them was to significantly expand the potential acreage that could be involved in a DORA. I want to say that the new is as big as 350 acres. Now, before everybody hyperventilates about that, our previous DORA was 20 acres. Our new DORA, permanent DORA, is 30 acres, okay? So, and all that, and the primary reason for that is that we're adding the Old Scratch area and squaring that off from the river down to Ray Street. That's the permanent area. Now, what we've found, in talking to other communities and with the additional flexibility in the new law, is that we found a couple of things. We can and did put into the ordinance where if council doesn't like the new days of the week that it's open, and they don't like the hours that they're open, or they want to, well, they can't expand the days, it's 7 days right now, but if they wanted to expand the hours, I don't know, I suppose there are people that drink it before 11 o'clock in the morning, no judgment here, but if they wanted to change that, then they could do that by simple ordinance. Whenever you do a DORA, and when we did this amendment to the DORA, there is a specific process that we have to follow. Namely that we have to advertise it. I have to put a formal application together, give it to the clerk of council. The council then clerk has to advertise it for 2 consecutive weeks to allow for public comments. In our case, we also did a public meeting as part of a committee meeting. And then if there are any changes, if the council does not like it exactly as I presented it to them, then they have to reject it. But if they reject it, I can then submit whatever amendments they want to see. It doesn't have to go back through that whole process. It's the same way with the changes to the hours and the dates. It's a simpler process. They made it a lot more flexible. What they did not make more flexible is changing the boundaries. And when I say changing the boundaries, specifically expanding the boundaries. At any time, the council can suspend certain areas of the DORA if they don't like it and make it smaller. Nobody's got a problem with that. But any time that we would want to expand the boundaries of the DORA, we would have to go through that whole process again, which is about a 60-day process. So when, in talking to our law director, we decided that, and we found this and plagiarized from another community, is to create an area as large as possible within the law limits that would be kind of contingent area of a DORA that we call activated. So it's not part of the permanent DORA. On any given day between 11 and 11, you're not able to wander into the area, specifically in the areas in blue. Those are only areas that could be activated for certain events or certain reasons. And they have to be reasons that, number one, the property owners, a certain number of property owners, such as Miami Conservancy District and the Park Board and the Miami County Commissioners, those 3 entities, would have to make a positive recommendation to the council for the council to then be able to activate it for whatever that specific time frame is. So it's a contingent area. It's only there if when or if but whatever that phrase is.
So what's an example of that? Like a festival?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's typically some kind of a special event that wants to go on, and they want to be, if you look, it does encompass the arena. It encompasses Community Park and also Treasure Island. But again, none of those they're not part of the DORA unless the Park Board and you own the arena property, but we would probably want to get input from the Rec Board, and we did go, you on our behalf went to the Rec Board, and so we got half of it done. I just didn't get the other half done. And again, I apologize for that.
Can the activation area shrink? In other words, if you were to go ahead and make an application for a large gathering at Treasure Island, for instance, can the activation be just for that area, or does it have to be for all of that blue space?
It has to be contiguous, but that doesn't mean the whole, to get to Treasure Island doesn't mean that all of this blue from east to west has to be activated. There just has to, it could be as simple as the the corridor along Main Street and up Elm Street
To get out
to
there.
connect it, yeah.
Gotcha.
Or along the river on the rec trail
Mhm.
is another example.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Terrington on the DORA?
No?
Well, this needs no action of the park board, it's a fait accompli. So,
Okay.
thank you for the update.
Sure.
Do you have anything else, sir?
No, I think that's enough.
There's something that came before our email today from the...
Yeah, we're still working that out. We did, since I got it, it's not a confidential document. I did receive a draft copy of I forget what they titled it, but some kind of an agreement related to the stadium, and specifically the turf project. They had a major donor, and the contingency that was added to that donation is their ability to name, and my understanding is to name the turf. It's not the stadium, and maybe that's not clear enough in that draft language, but it would be the turf, it would be on the turf, probably not really be able to be seen from the road, certainly would not be the stadium renaming. And so they're asking for the park, they will be asking for the park board's approval to have Mr. Cappers sign it on your behalf. I only got that at my lunch meeting today, got it to Mr. Cappers and Mr. Kerber, and they are looking at it. Sue did pull the ordinance with the deed restriction on it, with the exception of a couple minor typos. What you saw is what that language is. It does not specifically prohibit the ability to name the turf. It does specifically prohibit renaming the stadium. It does talk about the ability for them to advertise on one scoreboard. That's the only specifics there, so.
It also prohibits any signage outside the building other than on the scoreboard.
Correct. And I'm not,
Without
we should
consent of the
definitely
park.
clarify that with
Right.
them, but, and Mr. Kerber did reach back out to me preliminarily and said that the park board and the council do need to authorize the signature, just to keep it all,
The easiest thing to
tight.
is in that deed restriction, it says without the consent of the Board of Park Commissioners. Okay? So the easiest thing to do is to bring up what they want to have done at a park board meeting. We'll adopt a resolution. For instance, if they say, we want to go ahead and have this donor listed, name the turf, and they want to put the name in the end zones, the reason for that restriction to start out with was we didn't want a whole lot of advertising all over our municipal stadium,
Sure.
okay? So anything you can see from the street, we kind of outlawed except from the scoreboard. But if the name is in the end zone, flat on the ground, people in the stands can see it, but yet those people who are driving across may not.
Right.
So that might be something that they would consider, and something that I would favorably consider.
And so what, again, I did respond to you and asked if you had some specific language that you might like to see on there.
Well, my point is, we don't even need to sign their agreement.
They may need it for the particular business so that they have it laid out, but I could reach back out to them and say, hey, can you give us a rendering of exactly what you want to do?
Then
We include that picture with that,
Exactly.
and that's how we
That's it.
we deal with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it just has to be written consent.
It's a work in progress. We're not ready for anything yet. Again, we just got it today.
Yeah, their language was much too broad. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Mrs. Knight, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Hi, Mayor. Do you have anything you want to bring to the attention of the Board of Park Commissioners?
I just have a question for Kyler.
Sure. Could you come up and state your name, please?
I just have Robin Oda, citizen, resident of Troy. I have a question for Kyler, maybe Ken, just how the restaurant is doing at the golf course. I know with Darlene leaving, how are things going? What's the...
Sure. So we are open year-round along with the golf course, so a fairly limited operation at this point. So we have a person in place who will kind of be our lead. I myself am considered the manager of the one, so I have my ServSafe Level 2 manager certification. So it'll kind of run through me, but we have a person on site who will be the day-to-day manager, doing the ordering, receiving, that kind of stuff. And then Connor is the assistant golf pro, will be also responsible for some aspects of the operation, particularly with scheduling and helping out with employee training, along with the lead food service operator.
How have the numbers been? Are people still using it as much as they were, or has that dropped off?
Well, during this time of year, it's only being utilized, obviously, by the folks that are really coming in to utilize the simulator, and then, like today, for instance, with outside golfers. But myself and Connor have both taken our food service training, so you may have a hamburger made by yours truly on any given day. But which makes financial sense during this time of year, so.
I'm being kicked away from the podium.
I would never do that to you, ma'am.
If there's anything that wasn't clear
Just to clarify, you don't have to walk away, Mayor. That is a project that we've got on this year's project list with Kyler to continue to evaluate the shoreline, given that the change in the organization and the one simulator and second one coming online. We've had some interest or some inquiries by elected officials as to whether or not we need to look at maybe doing an improvement project to the building that maybe, for example, involves enclosing the outdoor porch and designing something even farther, whatever direction that is, towards the golf course. So that we, have space for the simulators on a more permanent basis rather than tearing them down. We talked about relocating the one to the back wall and adding the second one in that area. And then we're not sure that we can really do much in the kitchen with additional kitchen equipment. It was never designed, and nor do I think we could ever design it to be a full-service restaurant kitchen, but certainly if there are ways that we can enhance offerings with certain other equipment, whatever that is something that we'll be looking at this year as well.
Thank you. Kyler, how do the simulators get paid for? Is it a coin-operated thing? Is it something they have to come to the desk and pay for 18 holes, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's time-based. So they, like right now, for instance, at least during the winter months, we operate our pro shop out of the shoreline area, just so either myself or Connor have eyes on the equipment at all times. And so, but no, they reserve time just like a tee time, basically. There's also, you can even do it online. So we have an online, just like you could go online and book a tee time.
Just thinking outside the box, if we're running out of space at the golf club itself, would it make any sense to even look at developing a small building on the driving range to house that equipment, if it can be paid by credit card on a time basis?
So the difficulty there with simulators is, and from an experiential standpoint, it really helps if either myself or Connor are there, because of the fact that, and this is some complaints from seeing how other facilities operate it. It's technology-based to the point where it can get frustrating if something goes wrong and nobody's there to help out. So having one of us at least present or in the building, that if something does go wrong, that we can help fix that. So if there was some add-on, it would have to be within the confines of our building or adding on to our clubhouse to do that. So I wouldn't recommend having it on the driving range.
Gotcha.
Is that patio area utilized a lot in the summer?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
very much so.
is that not necessarily a great possibility?
For putting a simulator, to be honest with you, so I don't know off the top of my head what the height is, which can't be altered, so I'm not sure that it's high enough. That patio does not, it doesn't have enough width to house a simulator, or to create an enclosure, I think is what you're probably referring to. I could do some measurements, but I don't think it's high enough, and it's certainly not wide enough to create that.
I think you'd get some complaints if you didn't have the patio.
Mm-hmm.
People go in and buy a beer and they sit out there and take a look at all the
Right.
green space.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking more so during the winter time when it's not being utilized, but I do believe we have a fairly good option with potentially using the meeting space as more of a simulator space, because it actually spatially works really, really well, and would still maintain kind of all of our dining space. And because there's already an enclosure there, when you're not using the simulators, you would be able to enclose them and not have to take them down, so they could be left up, but also be out of the way during the summer season when they're not really being utilized. So that's kind of what we're exploring right now. The space works there for two. That portion of the ceiling just needs to be raised to accommodate that, which is not a huge cost, and that would, in my opinion, make the most sense, where they're in a space where you're not losing your dining space. That's kind of the issue we're dealing with right now with one, because of where it is. It's kind of out in the dining space, so we do lose some of that. But if we go this route, then they could even be closed off and left up and protected and then utilized properly when the winter season comes around.
And we were hoping, but it hasn't transpired, to have a lot of meetings out there.
No, I have one group right now that uses it and on a weekly basis, but that's not generating a tenth of what simulator revenue income would generate for us. So.
But the other thing to keep in mind too is that, if you have outings, that space back there is nice overflow space, especially if you've got a buffet. You've got to have the table set up. So those are all things that we need to think about. And then when you talk about the outdoor porch space, if we were to look at enclosing the porch that's there now, we would want to also construct additional outdoor space.
I would say, Patrick, I would even add that you could still modify it so that during the summer season, if we have two simulators and you're using that space, one could be left up, one could be taken down. You would still have room for your buffets and things like that for the preparation of that during the summer season. And then spatially, you still have enough of the dining space. We don't have really any huge, large-scale outings that utilize the entire dining space outside of maybe one, which would be probably the Chamber of Commerce outing. But if you have just a little bit of overflow out onto the patio, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world.
All it takes is money.
And do you ever anticipate using the simulators year-round?
Well, I mean, in this case, if you, yes, I mean, if at least one could be left up and closed off when it's not being utilized, then you could essentially have it as sort of almost like a rainy day kind of usage, because it takes very little to put up the software or whatever. So if it could just be screened off during the summertime, and then you have a rainy day where otherwise people aren't going to play, you open that area up and you're ready to go. So yeah, in that sense, it could be left up and utilized year round. But most of the time in the summer, people want to play outside. So.
Thank you, Mr. Terrington. Anything else? No, sir. Okay, thank you. Commissioners have anything else they want to discuss? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.